Hi, welcome back to the second series in the Step Up Your Practice video series on using the metronome, the most important tool for any musician to have. Now, if you're not practicing with the metronome every time you play, you should be. I'm going to show you how the metronome works in Studio One, and then I'm going to show you some creative and fun ways to practice with Studio One and your AudioBox Studio or Music Creation Suite to make practicing with the metronome more fun and more efficient so you can improve faster. So let's take a look at Studio One. You'll see in Studio One, all of your metronome features are at the bottom. So right now I can turn the metronome on and off, adjust the time signature, and adjust the tempo. So first, I'll just turn the metronome on and we'll get a click right at 120 beats per minute. Now, there's two important features to talk about: pre-count and pre-roll. What pre-count will do for us is give us a one measure count off anytime we activate the metronome. So you'll see that the cursor will not move, it'll give me a 4-beat count off and then it will begin. Also, pre-roll will give me one measure before where I want to start. So if I'm playing with a play-along series, or if I'm practicing along with something I've previously recorded and I want to hear the measure before, I can do that. So let's take a look at what that one does. Notice how it jumped back to the previous measure for me. So those two tools are very important and we'll use those in the series that come after this. Now, to adjust the metronome settings, you can adjust the sounds of the metronome, so you can change the sound of the accented beat, you can change the sound of the click. You can actually put in off beats, so you can actually subdivide. In this case, it would be in eighth notes. Notice you can adjust how many measures you want your pre-roll or pre-count to be. It always defaults to 1, but if you want 2, 3, or even 4 measures to click you off, you can adjust that there. So let's talk about some fun ways to practice. Now that we've looked at how the metronome works in Studio One, let's look at a couple scenarios and ways to use this that makes practicing more fun and efficient. First of which is we don't just have to play with the metronome. There's a bunch of drum loops in Studio One that automatically sync to the tempo. So if I just drag these in, all of a sudden the metronome experience becomes a lot cooler. So what I'm going to do is grab any one of these drum loops in our sounds. So I'm going to take, I'll just pick classic rock and drag it in. Studio One will create a track for me. Notice it gives me 2 measures of the drum beat, but I can easily duplicate this by just hitting D on my keyboard. Notice as I zoom out, I can just easily create 16 measures of drum loop. Now when I practice, I get this, which is of course synced to the tempo. So it can be faster or slower. Now, another cool way of using the metronome. What I like to do is actually render the metronome out so I can see the clicks in Studio One. I'm going to show you how to do this, and I'm going to show you how to practice with this as well. So I'm going to get rid of our drum beat here. What I'm going to do is go back into the metronome setup, and I'm actually going to render. So what we'll do is we'll create a loop at the top, and I just created an 8-measure loop. Now I'm going to render my metronome out at the tempo I set. So let's say I'm going to put it at 132. It adjusts the tempo for me. I have the metronome set up the way I want it, and I just hit render between the loop. Okay, it creates a track for me. So now I have my metronome on a track that I can mute or solo, but I can also see the clicks. Now this is cool for 2 reasons. If I'm playing guitar, which plugs right into my audio box, it's really helpful to see when I'm working on comping how everything lines up. So I'm going to show you, put on my headphones here. I'm going to listen to the metronome, and I'm going to do some comping, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. We go back to the beginning. Let's go ahead and say we'll give ourselves a pre-count. And because this metronome track is playing, it will actually play the metronome track while I'm recording. So I really don't need the metronome on at this point. Cool, so I just did some comping on a C minor there, but notice when I zoom in a little bit, you can see these transients of the waves and you can see how they line up. So when I listen back, I can pretty much tell that, like most musicians here, I was rushing a bit. You see it got faster too because I hit right there and the metronome click is over here. This is really cool for guitar or any wind instrument as well. I do this a lot in my own trumpet practice when I'm working on a piece where I want to really line up with the metronome. So let's go back. I'm going to simply delete this track and I'm going to record a little trumpet along with this click, always with my 4-measure pre-count here. And let's see what we get. So notice, you can still see the waves. We can just scooch this track up so we can get them together. Click anywhere here in the time base and pull down to zoom in. And you can already see, even without playing back, you can see that I did a pretty good job there. But later, you may see it not line up. So let's play back, watch, and listen. So that was pretty good. A lot of times it helps, especially when you're teaching lessons or when you're practicing on your own, to see the difference as well as hear it. Now, let's step up the challenge. What I'm going to do, this is a game I like to play when practicing to have perfect time. I'm going to delete that take. I'm actually going to mute this track so I cannot hear it. I'm going to give myself 4 metronome clicks and I'm going to play this and I'm going to see if I can keep steady time just from hearing 4 clicks. And then I can look and hear later, did I actually line up with the metronome? This is a great way to practice once you think you've got it right with the metronome to see if your internal time is right on. So here we go, let's take a shot at it. Cool, let's take a look and see what happened. Notice right here that we're not lining up. So let's take a listen with the metronome and see what we got. A little late there. Not bad. I got a little bit behind, but if you keep going, I just played 4 measures. Play 8 measures, play the whole 32 measure phrase, and you'll see where you're actually getting off tempo and you can go back. This is a great way of practicing with a metronome. So with Studio One, you have the metronome, the pre-count, and the pre-roll. You can play along with different drum beats to make the metronome more fun, and you can render the metronome out so you can visually see where you're lining up with the clicks, and then additionally try to play without the metronome and go back and see how you lined up. Lots of cool tools to step up your practice.